She thought it was just for her bestie discover the incredible moment her boss revealed that Jessica pressed her palms against the cool, polished surface of the firm's conference table, her heart racing. The glow from the overhead lights felt oppressive as the weight of her secret plan settled like lead in her stomach. She had poured herself into organizing this surprise charity fundraiser for Sarah, each detail meticulously planned to uplift her best friend. But now, as the date loomed closer, doubts gnawed at her like an unwelcome shadow. What if no one showed up to support? What if her boss, Mr. Thompson, with his ruthless efficiency and detached demeanor, crushed her dreams before they even had a chance to bloom? Sighing deeply, she stole a glance at her calendar, the relentless schedule tangled with the law firm's cases. She was always the one holding everything together, yet her own aspirations felt buried beneath the daily grind of management. Each task she completed seemed to chip away at her sense of purpose, leaving in its wake an aching void, a longing for authenticity, a yearning for change. Wasn't it a moral dilemma? Sarah fought every day against financial burdens, her spirit undaunted, while Jessica felt stuck in a role that, at times, felt deceptively noble yet utterly confining. Could she justify this little act of rebellion against her boss's iron will? The thought of planning this without him knowing sent chills down her spine. What if he found out? But then another voice within her questioned if a person was ever really alive if they didn't strive for something bigger than themselves. The heaviness of each choice suffocated her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the fundraiser approached, Jessica could hardly breathe as thoughts spiraled through her mind. The venue felt too small for the crowd she hoped to bring together. She hunched over her desk, mind racing. The contributions were barely trickling in, and she wondered if anyone could truly see Sarah's struggle. She felt her heart thrumming painfully beneath her ribs when she remembered the times Sarah confided in her, bursting with fierce love for Emmy yet weighed down by worry. Then came the night, an intricate tapestry of laughter and shared stories, yet Mr. Thompson stood apart, buried in paperwork, utterly unaware. The moment tangles of uncertainty tightened around her chest like a noose. She was drowning in fear, an urgent pulse echoing in her ears, trying to prepare herself for the worst, but silence fell as Mr. Thompson stepped forward, the room stilling as he grasped the microphone. Jessica felt her world tilt as he began to speak about Sarah's father, recollecting memories that intertwined with her own perception of the man she admired. Each word struck deeper, kindling flickers of light in the dark corners of her heart where hope lay dormant. Who was she really helping tonight? Could her mission truly matter if she was still in the shadows, watching others shine? As his voice faded, Jessica stood frozen, fueled by a turbulent mix of anger and despair. Her secret endeavor hadn't merely been about Sarah anymore, it was about her confrontation with her own fragile existence. With the weight of the night pressing down, she was left grappling with a terrifying realization: was she simply holding everyone up while her own dreams lay buried, fighting for breath? Jessica stood in the dimly lit office, the echoes of Mr. Thompson's speech still reverberating in her mind. Each of his heartfelt recollections felt like a direct affront to her own unvoiced aspirations. She felt small, overshadowed by the very man whose approval she had yearned for all her professional life. His presence loomed above her like an immovable mountain, while she struggled as an ephemeral wisp of ambition caught in a tempest of doubt. The next few days were a blur of restored energy mixed with bitter introspection. Driven reluctantly by the hope that had sparked during the fundraiser, she found herself drafting a plan. This time, however, it wouldn't be just for Sarah, it would be about her. She scribbled frenetic notes on yellow legal pads, awakening ideas buried deep within her, a network of potential projects, a reservoir of creativity she didn't remember possessing. Yet at every turn, the imposing figure of Mr. Thompson crept back into her thoughts. His skepticism had been palpable that night. He had stood as a reminder of the corporate world that demanded conformity and unyielding commitment. Each time she envisioned presenting her ideas to him, she felt the air thicken, suffocating her nascent plans before they even took flight. One evening, after another grueling day of paperwork and meetings, she found herself the last to leave the office. The shadows elongated across the walls as she began to dismantle her defenses. Jessica stood before her reflection in the glass door of her office, confronting her fears. Was she merely an accessory in this firm, or could she validate her own self-worth within these four walls? Regardless of Mr. Thompson's approval, wasn't she still entitled to pursue her goals? Dialing up her courage, she resolved to approach her boss with a proposal of her own, a chance to redirect her career pursuits in a way that melded her passion for people with her professional skills. She spent the next few days transforming her chaotic scribbles into a structured plan, reinforcing her ideas with facts and figures that highlighted the potential benefits for the firm. In preparation, Jessica created a PowerPoint presentation that overflowed with enthusiasm and purpose. The act of assembling her thoughts shifted something fundamental inside her. For the first time in years, she felt invigorated by the prospect of shaping her own narrative. It was as though each slide she perfected breathed new life, a pulse beneath a skin she had almost forgotten how to wear. Finally, the day arrived where she scheduled a meeting with Mr. Thompson. She could hardly concentrate on her day-to-day responsibilities, her stomach fluttering with uncertainty as she paced in the empty conference room. Bouncing ideas in her mind like tennis balls clattering against the walls, fear and anticipation coalesced within her chest. Would she find the courage to voice her truth? When Mr. Thompson entered the room, his polished demeanor made her heart stutter. She clenched her fists, piecing together the fragments of her resolve. This was her moment, not just for Sarah, but for the person she had long neglected. She stood straighter, meeting his gaze as she flipped open her laptop, but before she could speak, she noticed a shadow of uncertainty cross his face, an unusual crack in his tough exterior. What was he hiding? Did he sense the change within her, or was he merely preoccupied with his own battles? With a deep breath, Jessica steadied herself. The moment had come to face not only her boss but the manipulative doubt that had long constrained her spirit. Determined, she began her presentation, aware that this was not just a proposal but the reclaiming of her voice. As she spoke, she held tight to her vision, wondering if perhaps she would uncover something unexpected about her boss, herself, or maybe the powerful potential their collaboration had yet to yield. Would she break free from her past silences, or would the weight of his skepticism pull her under again? As Jessica launched into her presentation, her voice trembled for the briefest moment. The meticulously crafted slides danced on the screen before her, each point a testament to the investment of her heart and mind. She could feel Mr. Thompson's gaze, sharp as a scalpel, dissecting her every word. Yet, with an unwavering pulse, she pressed on, driven more by inner fire than fear of judgment. By implementing community engagement initiatives, Jessica asserted, we can not only uplift our organization's profile but also enhance employee morale. Investing time in causes that resonate with our values rejuvenates our commitment. She watched him nod slightly, an encouraging flicker amid his stoic facade. As she detailed her plan, highlighting case studies and potential benefits, a strange thing happened. Gradually, the landscape of her worries began to shift. With every statistic shared, every passionate plea for change she made, she reclaimed pieces of herself, the active participant she had fought to suppress beneath corporate expectations. But just as she felt the tides turning in her favor, a doubt gnawed at her. Was her vision enough to breach the walls of skepticism surrounding Mr. Thompson? Would her ideas be perceived as radical or, simply, irrelevant? Jessica acknowledged the internal struggle, refusing to allow the creeping fear to suffocate her resolve. The room felt charged. As she approached the last slide detailing a timeline and actionable steps, thick silence enveloped them. Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed deeply, betraying an intense internal battle of his own. Jessica could sense his hesitation. Was he performing the mental gymnastics of rationalizing her proposal, or was he preparing another layer of disapproval? Jessica, he began slowly, his voice weighing each word like a scale. He paused, scanning her face for signs of reassurance. Your insights are certainly refreshing. I have to commend your initiative, especially given your usual role in our firm. The breath Jessica had been holding slipped out, her defenses faltering. His acknowledgement ignited a spark of hope, daring her to see beyond the barriers that previously confined them both. But the world around her faded as his next word hung heavily in the air. This is quite different from what we've traditionally pursued. It's ambitious. The rising intonation he employed exposed an underlying uncertainty, revealing layers of vulnerability that Jessica had never anticipated. Anchoring herself, she decided to lean into this moment. Perhaps it's time for us to redefine what ambition entails. If we stay the course we've traveled, we risk stagnation. Change often seems daunting, but it can lead us to unprecedented growth. She locked eyes with him, a newfound assertiveness surging through her veins. His silence coaxed her to push further. Don't you think we owe it to ourselves and our clients to explore uncharted territories? Think of the potential this holds not just for us, but for the communities we impact. His gaze dropped to the screen, and the debate silently raged in his mind. The seconds turned into tense minutes, and Jessica could see the walls of artifice he had crafted beginning to crack. She wondered if, at this moment, she was not just presenting a proposal but offering him a glimpse of what was possible if he chose to trust in her vision. Yet, amidst the emotional transaction, an unsolved question loomed: would he embrace the promise of collaboration, or retreat to the safety of tradition? Before he could reply, they were interrupted by a knock at the door. The moment shattered, and the tension reformed into a cloak of professionalism. Jessica's heart raced as she prepared to hear his response, feeling that this decision could change everything for both of them. What would his answer reveal about their future, about the path Jessica would carve amidst the corporate landscape? The moment of truth approached, and she could sense the storm brewing, ready to shift the very foundation of their relationship. The interruption by the knock at the door hung in the air like a fog. Anxiety twisted in Jessica's stomach, the weight of her proposal now counterbalanced by the uncertainty of Mr. Thompson's upcoming response. The seconds crawled by, each tick of the clock amplifying her anticipation. "Come in," Mr. Thompson finally called, his voice steady. Jessica braced herself, both eager and anxious about who would enter this chapter of her professional journey. A mid-level manager entered with a stack of papers, eyes darting nervously between the two. "Sorry for barging in, but I thought you might need these reports for the next phase of your project," he mumbled, offering the files to Mr. Thompson. Jessica's pulse quickened, a sense of interruption palpable as Mr. Thompson flipped through the reports. Disappointment flickered within her. The moment had been fragile, and now it felt irrevocably fractured. She revealed her ambition, laid bare her vulnerability, only for it to be swiftly diverted by a mundane task. "Thank you," Mr. Thompson replied, his voice firm as he finished his review of the papers. He then turned back to her, his expression momentarily shifting from professional to contemplative. Jessica seized the moment. "Sir, if I may." Her heart raced as she stepped forward, a fire igniting within her. "Now is the moment for open dialogue about how we can adapt our strategies to achieve growth." He studied her for a heartbeat, the frown still creasing his forehead. "Right. Let us pick this back up, then," he said, dismissing the manager with a wave of his hand. Once the door clicked shut, a strange quiet enveloped them, almost intimate. Jessica felt her resolve solidify. She would not let this chance slip through her fingers again. "I believe in this change," she began, her voice slower, more deliberate, laden with conviction. "We can't shy away from new methodologies simply because they sound different. Tradition has its place, but it has to evolve." Mr. Thompson leaned back in his chair, the slight crease in his brow softening. "You're suggesting a complete overhaul of our client approach. It's not just ambitious, it's unprecedented in our history." "Exactly," Jessica said, her tone leaping with fervor. "Isn't that what we've talked about wanting to achieve? Positioning the company as a leader in innovation. We can't honor that vision by merely polishing old practices." Jessica felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it. With every word she articulated, she could sense the potential for change not just within the organization but also within Mr. Thompson. Their professional relationship teetered on the brink of transformation, and she wanted it desperately. Would he join her on this journey, or continue to resist out of fear? Let us look at the numbers and projected outcomes one more time, he said, his voice steady though a hint of uncertainty still shadowed his features. Let us not just look at them, Jessica countered, her confidence rising like a tide. Let us imagine what is possible. Let us create a vision, together. As she spoke those words, the weight of her ambitions clashed with the fear of the unknown, a paradox that had haunted her for too long. In that moment, Jessica's thoughts tumbled, reflecting a deep yearning to break free from not just institutional constraints, but also her own reticence. Every challenge she faced revealed a glimmer of inner strength begging to be unleashed. Mr. Thompson paused, his expression unreadable. The tension on his face suggested a struggle between embracing the new and adhering to the established order. But would he allow belief in the potential of Jessica's vision to overpower his caution? The flicker of doubt in the recesses of his eyes hinted at the depth of his internal conflict, and for Jessica, that was a sign. Then, with a breath, he said, "All right, Jessica. Show me how this works." The transformative moment crystallized. Here it was, the very opportunity she had been carving her path toward. But the journey was fraught with more questions. What would transforming his vision into reality demand of her? Would it place her in confrontation with others who clung to tradition? As they began dissecting the proposal together, her mind spun with possibilities and the promise of adversity. The gears of her ambition had started turning, but beyond the calculated risks lay a deeper conflict, a reflection of her own fear of failure and her ignited desire to excel. Jessica knew she was entering uncharted territory, but her determination surged amidst the uncertainty. What unforeseen challenges would arise as she navigated this new partnership with Mr. Thompson? Would collaboration prove to be a stepping stone or a stumbling block in her quest for professional liberation? The air thickened with anticipation as Jessica spread the proposal documents across Mr. Thompson's polished mahogany desk. Each sheet felt like a roadmap to something greater, daunting yet invigorating. The quiet hum of the office now seemed to amplify her adrenaline. "Let us begin with the client segmentation," she said, her voice unexpectedly steady. She pointed to the graphs, which illuminated the potential shifts in market dynamics. She had analyzed these figures tirelessly, each data point embodying the risks they couldn't afford to ignore. The key was persuasion, she knew. If we incorporate a tiered approach, we can target clients more effectively. Mr. Thompson leaned in, intrigued, but skepticism still danced in his gaze. "You understand some senior members will resist these changes. They see this as uncharted waters." Jessica felt a tiny pang of doubt, but she firmly held her ground. Change always brings resistance. It's how we handle that resistance that defines our success. The words echoed her internal resolve, an assurance in a moment where hesitation could easily seep in. As they worked together, she could sense the subtle shift in his demeanor. His questions transformed from mere challenges to genuine curiosity. The tense wall between them began to crumble. Their conversation flowed like a well-composed symphony, rhythmically evolving as they explored the depths of innovation, but beneath her growing confidence lay a quiet fear that gnawed at her. Was she prepared for the inevitable pushback she would face from those loyal to the old ways? What if she failed to bring others along on this journey? This nagging thought lingered, threatening to undermine her fresh momentum. "Jessica," Mr. Thompson interrupted her contemplation. "You speak eloquently about innovation, but we must be practical. What about those metrics? Are you prepared to defend these numbers at the executive meeting?" His question cut through her daydreams of success, exposing the vulnerable core of her vision. "I will prepare thoroughly," she announced, determination steeping into her tone. The fear momentarily recoiled as she articulated a plan, equipped with counterarguments and anticipated concerns. "Visual aids, case studies from industry leaders, and potential impact forecasts will frame our presentation nicely," she continued, her heart racing with renewed vigor. "This is not just a leap of faith, it's backed by data." Mr. Thompson nodded, admiration flashing across his features. "You're thinking like a leader, Jessica. That's promising to see." Emboldened by his recognition, Jessica spoke with urgency. I need your buy-in during the presentation. When I lay out these concepts, your endorsement as a partnered advocate will be crucial. You have the authority to sway senior management. He leaned back, a contemplative look replacing the semblance of doubt. You know, I've seen many ideas like this die a slow death in boardrooms. It's often not the idea that fails, it's the lack of conviction to push through the storm. The chilling reminder sunk in. The corporate storm could be relentless, and she had chosen to sail directly into it. She straightened her shoulders, channeling that fear into action. Then let us ensure we're ready for that storm. I'll shoulder the risks with you, and together, we can steer through. With that shared commitment igniting a flicker of unity, the tension of uncertainty began to dissipate somewhat. Yet, her internal battle raged on. As they reviewed the presentation outline, her mind raced ahead, envisioning the pitfalls, the potential discourse in the boardroom, and the faces that would react with confusion or defensiveness. Would their newfound alliance withstand the structural inertia of tradition? But there was something exhilarating about the challenge, a spark she hadn't felt before in her career. It was as if she were teetering on a precipice of discovery, arms wide open to the possibilities that lay ahead. Would Mr. Thompson champion her vision against the tides of resistance? What consequences awaited if he faltered? The weight of her aspirations pressed heavily upon her, ensuring she stayed alert to the unfolding dynamics of her audacious ambition. Just as the clock ticked towards closure, Mr. Thompson received a notification on his phone, a meeting request from the board, an urgent request for an overview of upcoming initiatives. Jessica's stomach twisted again. The proposal was suddenly no longer a theoretical exercise, it would soon be scrutinized under the harsh glare of executive expectations. Looks like we're being called to present sooner than I anticipated, Mr. Thompson remarked, a glint of excitement sparking in his eyes. Jessica's resolve hardened, she would no longer shroud her potential behind hesitation. The countdown had begun. What would it take to stand before the board and carve her place in the company history? Would they recognize her vision or dismiss it, silencing the voice she had fought so hard to amplify? The stakes had dramatically risen, and the moment of truth was growing ever closer, bringing with it the promise of opportunity and the threat of failure. With her heart racing and palms slightly clammy, Jessica felt the weight of the impending executive meeting loom larger than life. Each passing minute felt like a countdown to judgment, intensifying her resolve yet stirring a familiar anxiety. She quickly reviewed her notes again, even as her mind flooded with what ifs that I in the quiet of the office. She spotted Mr. Thompson studying the agenda of the meeting, his brow furrowed with contemplation. The uncertainty that lingered over the room became palpable, threading through their conversation, a reminder of what awaited them, a battleground where ideas either blossomed or withered under scrutiny. What if they don't see your vision the way we do? She asked, voicing the doubt that echoed in her mind long before she entered the room. What if they reject it outright? Turning to face her, Mr. Thompson sighed, his voice steady yet unyielding. Jessica, that's always a possibility, but that's where preparation comes in. You need to frame this proposal not only as a plan but as a need. His words resonated, stirring a sense of urgency within her. How do we translate data into emotion? The numbers alone won't sway them. It's about grabbing their imaginations, inspiring them. The realization struck her with vigor. It wasn't just about presenting figures, it was about painting a picture of potential, a future they could share. Suddenly, an idea sparked. What about stories from clients? Real-world successes where a tiered approach brought tangible results. The thought flowed easily now, opening doors in her mind she hadn't realized were shut. If I can weave our metrics into those narratives, we could ignite a connection. Mr. Thompson smiled, enthusiasm sparking in his eyes. Now you're thinking strategically. Use personal testimonials, enliven those numbers. What could your clients dream with our services? What challenges have they overcome? That's how we capture hearts, not just minds. Encouraged, Jessica jumped on this newfound energy, a flurry of ideas spilling out. I can compile brief stories from past projects, testimonials on how our shift led to significant growth. We show a direct correlation between strategy and success. It's more relatable. Her confidence soared like a phoenix from her own doubt, yet, as they worked fluently in this creative space, a gnawing thought lingered: would their executive board appreciate this shift in storytelling? She was wandering into the unknown, a territory where every word weighed heavily, delicately balancing between innovation and tradition. With every passing instant, her certainty feigned, just as doubt would creep in. And what if this emotional approach backfires? She questioned, pacing slightly as she considered the ramifications of risking credibility. Then we adapt, Mr. Thompson replied, his tone imbued with an understanding she respected. Every professional faces resistance. You must be prepared to defend your choices, both logistically and emotionally. That's the heart of leadership: being ready to adjust course while fervently believing in your vision. Jessica took a deep breath, appreciating the gravity of his words. This moment wasn't simply about presenting a proposal, it was about embodying the conviction to innovate against tradition's stiffened boundaries. She nodded, determination flooding through her. Each thoughtful exchange with Mr. Thompson stoked her ambition further. She envisioned herself not merely presenting but rallying a call to action, her voice anchored with purpose, enticing her peers to visualize their shared future. It was no longer merely about navigating resistance, it was about dismantling it. As she left the office that day, her mind buzzed with strategy and emotion, a potent mix that invigorated her. She reminded herself that her fear was often the precursor to growth. The countdown was truly on, but this time, she would step into that boardroom armed not just with data but belief. With a final glance at her notes, Jessica pondered the next challenge. Could she leverage this newfound narrative drive to sway skeptical minds? Would Mr. Thompson's support hold true when faced with intense scrutiny? The quiet stir of anxiety collided with anticipation, a breathless whisper of possibility. She returned home, her thoughts racing as she envisioned her presentation. The moment of truth was at hand, and with it came the promise of not just survival, but transformation. Before she could settle into bed, she jotted down one last thought: if this moment could reshape her career, what would be revealed about her along the way? The real journey was just beginning, and the stakes were higher than ever before. As the sun rose, casting light across her room, Jessica woke with a sense of purpose, her heart still beating with the anticipation of the imminent meeting. The jumble of thoughts from the night before raced through her mind like a tightly wound clock spring. Today would not just be another day, it would be a turning point. Sitting up in bed, she forced herself to breathe and visualize the different scenarios that might unfold. Each potential outcome danced through her mind, a vivid tapestry woven with threads of triumph and anxiety. Yet, it was the image of her standing confidently at the helm, leadership radiating from her presence, that ignited her resolve. She would embrace her strategy, interlacing the data with stories, and ensure her colleagues could not only see the vision but feel it. Breakfast felt like a ritual of preparation. As she sliced through the toast, each scrape of the knife against the plate mirrored her mental state, a mix of sharp determination and slightly hesitant uncertainty. She reminded herself how daunting it once felt to conceive ideas freely and craft them into recommendations, but now, she recognized that it was precisely those stories that carried the weight to inspire. Arriving at the office, the atmosphere buzzed with anxiety, an almost tangible energy permeating the air. Colleagues whispered among themselves, their greetings drenched in apprehension, underscoring the weight they collectively bore. Jessica felt a flutter of nerves stir in her stomach, momentarily overshadowed by the sheer will to rise above them. She had worked tirelessly to evolve into this moment, and today would reflect that growth. In the conference room, the stark white walls felt almost stifling, adorned only by the starkness of the long table and the austere chairs bordering it. As her colleagues filtered in, Jessica prepared her presentation, her heart thrumming steadily in her chest. Each person took their seats, and she could feel their eyes flicker towards her notes, their unspoken judgments forming a chorus of uncertainty. Thompson entered last, a reassuring presence amidst the gathering clouds of doubt. He caught her eye and nodded subtly, an anchor in the storm. With a calming breath, the heaviness of expectation shifted within her. This wasn't merely a presentation, it was her moment to craft a narrative that could influence and inspire. As she began, the initial tremor of her voice steadied with each word, the personal stories entwining with the hard data revealing pathways to success. Animated anecdotes filled the air, and for the first time, she watched her colleagues lean in, the flicker of interest lighting their eyes. It was no longer just about the metrics, it was life breathed into numbers, casting a vision so vibrant, it was palpable. However, doubt crept back as she neared the end of her presentation. What if the board members held rigidly to their old ways, unwilling to embrace the shift she so fervently advocated? The familiar gnawing anxiety resurfaced, each heartbeat echoing the question in her mind: would they accept her vision or dismiss it as naive wishful thinking? As silence enveloped the room following her conclusion, it felt as if time froze. She could almost hear the gears turning in the minds of her colleagues. Would they embrace this change, or would they cling to tradition? The clock ticked loudly in her ears, and just as she prepared for resistance, a hand shot up. Michael, one of the most skeptical board members, had a question. "Jessica, how viable do you believe this shift really is? Can we truly rely on emotions to drive our results?" His skepticism hung heavy in the air, challenging her confidence. Jessica took a moment, feeling the rise of adrenaline surge through her. This was a moment to confront the criticism head-on, to engage in a dialogue that could either reinforce her position or unravel her. With resolve crystallizing, she met his gaze. "Michael, numbers matter, but what we fail to realize is that behind every number lies a story. These stories foster loyalty, ignite passion, and convert prospects into advocates. If we ignore them, we risk stagnation." Those words echoed, a challenge thrown down. She realized that her growth was not selfish, it was a call for collective transformation. Would she stand firm against the skepticism faced within the walls of convention, or would she allow it to suffocate the momentum she had built? The next few moments stretched like years as she waited for the response. Digging deep into her reserves of belief, she prepared herself for any direction this could take. Could she innovate within the confines of tradition? Would these hesitant inquiries lead to meaningful dialogue? The moment had arrived, and the silence swelled with expectancy. Jessica's heart raced once more as she recognized that the stakes had never been higher, not just for her career, but for her evolving self. This was not just a meeting, it was a confrontation with her own courage. The air thickened with tension, the question lingering: would the narrative she crafted stand strong against the pressure, or would it collapse under harsh scrutiny? As she poised herself to respond, uncertainty and resolve danced within her, the real battle of belief now poised to begin. As the silence deepened, Jessica's mind raced through a kaleidoscope of potential outcomes. Each scenario unfolding in her mind played out with unnerving clarity, but she kept her focus tight on the present moment. She had prepared for this, had rehearsed every possible response, yet Michael's pointed question sent a ripple of uncertainty through her. How could she shift the collectively ingrained mindset of the board? How could she persuade them that innovation was more than a mere buzzword, that it was the lifeblood of their industry? The weight of expectation bore heavily on her shoulders. "I believe the viability hinges on how well we understand our narrative," she replied, her voice steadying. "It's about forging connections, those emotional ties that turn a casual customer into a passionate supporter." She watched as skepticism rippled across the table, but she pushed on. Her heart raced with both fear and determination. "Think about our recent campaign. The numbers surged when we included customer stories. We created a platform for dialogue. We invited customers into our fold." Beneath the stern gazes, Jessica sensed a flicker of genuine intrigue. It ignited something within her, a fierce determination to drive this change, to demand a shift in philosophy. "Jessica, if we do this, we risk losing control," said another board member, Megan, her lips pressed into a thin line. Jessica felt a rush of adrenaline. What are we trying to achieve here if not to capture and keep our audience's loyalty? Control can only stifle creativity. True influence comes from understanding, from adapting. The tension in the room thickened, and doubts waged war with the burgeoning hope that her words were sparking. Were they ready for this kind of vulnerability? Could they relinquish the illusion of control for something more dynamic? Megan's brows furrowed, contemplating Jessica's words. And if our approach fails? If our audience doesn't respond? Jessica took a breath, acknowledging the fear but refusing it a place in her decision-making. What if it succeeds? What if we become pioneers in our field by showing people that we care? In that moment, she felt a swell of confidence. Her journey from the timid employee afraid to voice her opinions to this moment felt monumental. Every doubt, every struggle contributed to the fortitude she now embodied. Jessica. The call of Mr. Thompson drew her attention, his voice retaining that steadiness she relied on. Let us assume for a moment that you're right. How do we implement this change without jeopardizing our current objectives? This was the heart of the matter. She had prepared for this question, yet the clarity she needed had not fully emerged until now. We pilot a program, she suggested, her mind racing with structure as she spoke. A smaller campaign centered around storytelling. We will track the metrics closely, we will adapt and learn as we go. Jessica could see shifts in her colleagues' expressions, from apprehension to consideration. She knew this was not a mere momentary victory, it was a beginning, a potential roadmap to a transformation she could initiate. And if it fails? Michael pressed again, his skepticism still embedded in the room. Then we learn. Every failure is just another piece of the narrative we can use to strengthen our resolve. Her voice carried a conviction she couldn't quite contain. We must dare to take these initial steps, it's the only way to carve a path forward. Their expressions had softened, revealing cracks in the armor they wore against change. For Jessica, it became evident this was more than just about the campaign. It was her revolution, a chance to cultivate something organic and real within her workplace. Silence crashed down upon them once more as they considered her proposal. But the tension felt different now, it was an electric anticipation that surged through the air. Finally, Mr. Thompson broke the silence. All right, Jessica. I think it's time we take you up on that offer. Let us see where this narrative will lead us. A rush of exhilaration coursed through her veins. This was the moment she had longed for, the pathway that would redefine her professional identity. Yet, in the depths of that triumph, a fear flickered to life. What would she do if this new direction faltered under the pressure of expectation? As the meeting adjourned, Jessica felt buoyed by a potent mix of elation and trepidation. She had taken a resilient step forward, yes, but real leadership demanded more than that, it required a continuous evolution of herself. Could she truly navigate this uncharted territory and sustain the momentum she had ignited? The question lingered in the back of her mind, as palpable as the thrill in her chest. Tomorrow would come with its own set of challenges, new obstacles to confront, and perhaps startling revelations about her own capabilities. With determination solidifying, she gathered her notes, knowing that this initial victory was merely the beginning. As she prepared to leave the conference room, her phone buzzed with an incoming notification, a reminder about her weekly performance review with Mr. Thompson. The lingering curiosity crept in, what feedback would he offer about their transformative journey and her newfound resolve? Would it propel her forward, or would it expose her vulnerabilities all over again? As the door clicked shut behind her, the uncertainty loomed, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. The performance review was looming like a storm cloud on the horizon, and Jessica could feel it. Each step toward Mr. Thompson's office felt heavier than the last, her pulse echoing in her ears. A mix of excitement and dread surged within her. This was more than a simple evaluation, it was a moment that could either cement her newfound role as a change agent or expose her to the risk of falling short. As she entered the office, she was struck by its contrast. The walls were adorned with accolades that told stories of past triumphs, yet they felt like a stark reminder of how far she still had to go. Mr. Thompson sat behind his desk, his expression inscrutable. The atmosphere was thick with professional decorum, yet Jessica sensed something deeper behind his calm demeanor. Jessica, he began, his tone steady but laced with an underlying tension that mirrored her own. You've pushed for significant changes during the last meeting, changes that could redefine our approach. Tell me, what is your vision for the next steps? She took a breath, her heart racing with the weight of her words. I believe we need to establish trust with our audience through genuine storytelling. It's not just about metrics, it's about creating a community. I want to pilot this campaign to see if we can transform our relationship with our customers. His eyes narrowed slightly, a signal of both interest and caution. And if it doesn't work? If the community aspect doesn't resonate? This was her moment. Then we adapt. My aim isn't just to push forward, it's to learn and evolve. I see failure as a vital part of our growth. Mr. Thompson leaned back in his chair, contemplating her every word. Jessica could see the wheels turning in his head, a mix of assessment and intrigue as he processed the implications of her proposition. Your confidence is evident, he finally said, but I worry about how our stakeholders will perceive any missteps. Change is a double-edged sword, and we have a reputation to uphold. Each word he spoke rang with truth, yet Jessica felt a flicker of defiance ignite within her. Why should they weigh potential failure against maintaining an image that can find them? I believe our reputation can shift if we lead with authenticity. What's the point of maintaining an appealing facade if we risk losing what really matters, our customers' trust? The conversation hung in the air, thick with anticipation. For a moment, she felt like a tightrope walker, balancing between her aspirations and the reality of the corporate landscape. She noted how he scrutinized her, not just as an employee but as a person with opinions, drive, and ambition. Very well, he said finally, leaning forward with a new intensity. Here's what I propose, we'll start with a pilot, but you need to have a robust plan in place to present to the board next week. Metrics, outcomes, potential risks, everything. If you can show me a path forward that minimizes the danger and maximizes our chances of success, I will support you. A rush of exhilaration flooded her. This was an opportunity to chart her destiny, but it was also a challenge. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I won't let you down. As she left his office, her mind was racing. This was it, the threat of failure loomed larger than it had before. She would need to craft a meticulous strategy, face down potential fallout, and lead her team into untested waters. Each decision mattered now more than ever, and she felt the chime of urgency pushing her forward, yet, beneath the exhilaration lay a gnawing doubt that whispered venomously, what if her best was good enough? What if success hinged not on her vision but on unpredictable market forces or dampened team spirit? As she made her way back to her desk, the weight of responsibility pressed in. She glanced around the bustling office, each person focused on their tasks, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. Could she rally them around her cause? Was she truly ready to champion innovation against all odds? And what if their enthusiasm turned to hesitation once the stakes were higher? Resolute yet anxious, she sat down and began drafting the outline for her proposal. The path forward was tangled, and doubts crept in, but she could not afford to hesitate now. Anticipation electrified her fingers as they flew across the keyboard. The window to seize this moment was closing fast, and tomorrow the board would expect her vision to be unveiled. Just as she sank deep into focus, her phone buzzed again, stealing her attention. A notification about an upcoming competitor's groundbreaking innovation made her pulse race. The stakes were climbing, and she could feel the pressure tightening around her. Could she outmaneuver them and inspire her own team to believe in this new narrative? With her heart pounding, Jessica realized that the hardest part had only just begun. What other obstacles lay ahead that could threaten her progress, and how far was she willing to go to transcend not just their past failures, but her own fears? In the weeks that followed the pivotal board meeting, Jessica felt a palpable shift within the firm. The pilot program she had championed was not just a project, it was a declaration of her newfound identity woven into every stakeholder interaction, every campaign launch. Feedback from early initiatives rolled in, and each positive assessment acted as fuel, igniting her zeal. Jessica had transcended the role of mere employee, she had asserted herself as a leader, an innovator, and most importantly, an integral player in rewriting their company's narrative. Her confidence surged as reports came in demonstrating the tangible impacts of their campaigns. Customer testimonials flooded in, stories of transformed experiences and genuine connections emerged like a spring awakening. Conversations shifted from mundane market data discussions to impassioned talks of community and emotional connections. The firm was not only adapting to changes, it was thriving through them, yet, amid the triumphs, Jessica never lost sight of her fears. Memories of her earlier insecurities lingered like a shadow, whispering doubts mingling with the burgeoning success. Would the momentum hold? Could she galvanize support from all levels of the firm? Those questions loomed but no longer held her captive. Instead, she used them as tools for improvement, formulating strategies to reinforce her vision in every subsequent presentation and meeting point. One afternoon, the entire team gathered to discuss results from the first phase of her program. The atmosphere within the conference room buzzed with shared energy. Mr. Thompson stood at the helm, his demeanor remarkably transformed since he first challenged Jessica's ambitions. As he presented glowing metrics on engagement growth, Jessica felt validated not just as an employee but as a force for change. "Jessica," he said, turning his attention toward her, eyes brimming with appreciation, "your leadership spearheaded this initiative, and the results speak volumes. Can you share your insights on implementing further phases?" Jessica cleared her throat, a physical act echoing the transition from anxiousness to commanding presence. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. The heart of our recent success lies in our emphasis on authentic storytelling and community engagement," she began passionately. "If we maintain this trajectory, we can explore new avenues that draw customers in, solidifying their emotional connection to our brand." As she scanned the room, she could see nods of agreement, a collective recognition of her journey from uncertainty to autonomy. Each colleague had begun to look at her not just as a peer but as a trusted leader shaping their workplace's ethos. The path she had paved through collaborative discussions was slowly easing doubts, allowing them to envision a future emerging from the roots she had planted. With every word, she acknowledged the challenge ahead, scaling the campaign further and establishing deeper ties with customers. "If we integrate feedback loops from our audience, we can adapt dynamically, continuing to resonate instead of risking stagnation," she proposed, her belief echoed in the room's hushed intrigue. As discussions evolved into blueprints for next steps, Jessica felt a weight lift. The whisperings of self-doubt dissipated in the face of collective enthusiasm. She was no longer merely an accessory in the firm, she had become a catalyst for transformation. This realization solidified her confidence, leading her to propose a monthly review where team members could share insights and adaptive strategies. The firm was ready to entrust her with a voice that shaped direction. In time, their efforts bore fruit. The company achieved recognition in the industry as a leading firm not just in expertise but also in community impact. Awards for innovation and client relationships began to line the walls of their office, a testament to the groundwork Jessica had laid through clarity, vision, and relentless perseverance. With her career trajectory slated for growth and opportunity ahead, Jessica now felt anchored in not just her skills but her purpose. She had risen to a moment that transformed both her professional landscape and her personal identity. Reflecting on her journey, the transition from fear into empowerment now felt monumental. It was in that moment of self-reflection, standing before the awards adorning the office landscape, that Jessica recognized her achievement was about more than accolades or recognition. It was about proving to herself that she could break free from the confines of self-doubt. She had earned her place as a leader, validated by her contributions that inspired not only her but those around her. Jessica smiled while looking at the final award titled Innovator of the Year with her name beautifully engraved. She felt a satisfying fullness emanate from within. Each challenge she faced had chiseled away at her insecurities, sculpting a resilient, capable leader ready to navigate the unpredictable tides of corporate life, and as she stepped away from the glittering display, ready to carve the next chapters of her evolving narrative, she resolved to continue breaking ceilings not just in her professional circles, but within herself. Now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because it truly makes a difference. We want to hear from you. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this remarkable conclusion of overcoming personal and professional barriers.